welcome back to the studio. I have on my quilt frame the beautiful Radiant Garden quilt. I'm still in the process of doing the border video, but I wanted to go ahead and get something else started. And I had gotten in the Zen Garden, which is another really beautiful floral quilt. I think it would be a wall hanging, but you could also use it as a lap quilt. This is a 12 block quilt. The blocks are 12 inches finished. They are cut 12.5 inches. And I've already gone ahead and done that because it's fairly simple just to cut 12.5 inch blocks. They're all the same size, so there isn't anything too intricate about that. I picked this out just last week or the week before when I went to my local quilt shop with my quilting buddy, Marguerite. And I'm not really a huge person for orange, but there is orange in a lot of the florals on here, so I went ahead and chose orange as my inner border, and it is just an accent, so I think I can live with that. And they had just gotten in this really beautiful green batik, so I don't know, I have an eye for batiks. I like those a lot. And I can't remember, yeah, this is a batik kit. So Zen Garden quilt, it's 12 blocks. I'm going to be starting that today. I'm going to put aside my border fabric and my inner border fabric because I won't be needing those for a while. But I do have them pre-selected and I'm pretty happy with those. So, and the fabric that I chose, boy, this is a whopper. I didn't realize the names of fabric had gotten so long. This was Riley Blake design. It's called Shabby by Lori Halt of Bee in My Bonnet. So that's the color, the fabric that I'm using as the background. It is a white fabric with a mint green little cross hatching print in there. It kind of looks like patches of grass almost. I've used this in several different colorways because it works really, really well. It just gives you a hint of color without being overpowering. And as I said, I've already gone ahead and cut up my 12.5 inch blocks for the entire quilt. So I can just go ahead and put those aside and get my kit ready to pull out. And the kits come really nicely packaged. You could do these if you were a shop owner as a block of the month because they are packaged in individual blocks. Originally they would have been released as a block of the month, but we are not doing as block of the month at this time, so we could send them to you as a kit and you could do them as a block of the month because they are packaged that way. It has a really nice instruction packet that goes over all the cutting instructions as well as all the instructions for the process of the applique. You have the whole color cover sheet for the entire quilt. You also have that again on the instruction sheet and all the other instructions that you would need for the process. I also like these really nice plastic cases that hold everything in place. And on the back is all of the fabric requirements for the entire quilt. It gives you both the option for the borders, inner border and outer border, if you choose to use those or not. That's up to you. And then, as I said, each of the months or kits are packaged individually. So it's block 1 through 12. So I'm going to pull out block number 1. We're going to work on that today. I don't need my cutting instructions because I've already done that. And I can go ahead and put all this aside. And I'm just going to keep one of my blocks. And I'll pull you in closer so you can see that in a second. And I'm going to keep my one kit. And this will go pretty quick because there aren't a lot of components to this block, so it'll make it pretty simple. This would make a really great gift for somebody, and I think it's just a really great memory maker in general. I always like to have something that I could work on with somebody. Perhaps it's something you'll gift to them later, and it just creates an additional memory of the item, not just the gift itself, but that shared memory of creating it together. So I'm going to pull the camera in and we can get started on this beautiful block from Zen Garden. You can see my fabric here, very faint green cross hatching. I should turn it the right way up. I should make sure I do that each month. It's a little bit brighter now. And here's my pattern. And every time I pull my pattern out, especially a folded pattern, I just like to give it a press with my dry iron just to get out any creases, because I don't want that crease to translate into a misplaced component of the arrangement. And I have my color cover sheet that will help me if I have any confusion about where a particular piece will go, so I can set that to the side. There's also always an instructional sheet here that will give you all the instructions, keeping in mind that this process is basically peel, place, and press. You just peel the paper backing off of the back, place it into position, and press it when you're ready. So I leave the instructions over here. Usually, because I have so many of these, I will stack my paper backings on top of them, and that way I can help get those to the garbage. So I will separate all of my items into like shapes or colors, and that way it helps me assemble the applique that much quicker. We have a lot of cute circles. I think this entire quilt has a lot of really beautiful circles in it. An element of sacred geometry. And I usually save these bags. They're very handy around the studio. So I'm going to see if I can see through here. And I can see pretty well. And I just roughly want to center this design underneath the applique. And then I'm going to pull aside some of my pieces. So I have my paper pattern underneath. I've got my background fabric laid on top of it, and I have my paper here so that I could use it as a placement guide. As we said, this is just peel, place, and press. So if you slightly bend under the paper, you can peel that paper backing off and just lay those over top of the pattern piece. You can always lift up the background fabric if you're unsure about the size of a piece, because some of these circles are going to be very similar in size. If you have young kids in the house, they could use this as puzzle pieces and just help you assemble or place the shapes on top of the paper background without the background in place, just on the paper pattern. And it could be a fun tool for them just to learn a little bit of muscle memory and spend some time with them here on a project. You can see as quick as this goes, as we're doing it in real time, that using this laser cut and pre-fused applique is a fairly quick process. I've been doing applique for many, many years, and I almost wish that this technique was around a lot longer ago, because there's many things that I wish I could have done that I was never able to get around to, because hand applique takes so much time. Even if you were doing raw edge applique and you had to do all of the tracing and cutting, that could be very laborious, and it takes quite a bit of the joy out of it. And if you're not really great with the shears, or you don't have a great pair of shears, it can really also diminish the finished product. We have to keep in mind when we get to the fusing stage, when you have compound pieces like this, where we've got the dot, the squiggle, the flower, and the background, we have to allow the heat of the iron to transfer through all of those layers of not only the fabric, but the fusible web as well. And because this is repositionable, I can lift that back up and place this leaf underneath where I was supposed to. I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to lift up a couple pieces to get this little teardrop in there. But this is the beauty of having this Steam 2, which is completely repositionable until you fuse it. And now we just have the last few dots. I think, yes, I had one dot hiding under another. I almost thought I was missing one. Because these go together so great, it makes a great option for a gift for somebody. Because there's so many people in our life, we don't always have time to spend months and months working on one gift for just one person in our life. And this makes a really beautiful, vibrant project. So at this point, I've got all the pieces in place. I can go ahead and take the pattern out and put the color cover sheet aside. I'm going to get my iron ready and my Teflon pressing sheet, and we can go ahead and fuse this and get this one ready to hang on the design wall until all of the blocks are finished. I have my block laying on top of a Teflon pressing sheet. I'm going to give a nice little coating of some mist from a spray bottle, because I use a dry iron. And I'm going to lay on top of it my Teflon pressing sheet, so it's sandwiched inside there like a little panini press. And I'm going to go ahead and let the heat of the iron migrate down through the Teflon pressing sheet and through each layer of that fabric and fusible web. The most common problem with using any kind of fusible web is that people do not let the heat transfer through enough, and it leaves too much gummy residue available to come loose from the project, and that's why you get gumming on your needle if you're top stitching or quilting. You cannot overfuse Steam-A-Seam 2. You'd more likely burn your fabric long before that ever happened. So make sure that you always give plenty of time for the heat to transfer all the way through the project. And as I said earlier, if you have compound layers, you really have to let the heat get through all the different layers to fuse that. If you are unsure, you could always give it another little mist and give the whole piece another little press. When I finish, what I'm going to do is flip the block over and fuse again from the back, because again, the number one issue with a fusible web is that we do not allow the heat enough time to transfer through all the way through the layers. Now people ask, how long should I let the iron sit? I cannot tell you. We all use different irons with different heat settings of different quality. We're all in different ambient temperatures. There's just too many factors involved with the amount of time it takes. You just have to test that for yourself and learn life's lessons. I know in the past I've quilted for somebody that had done a fusible project, and I was able to peel off all of her pieces and quilt the quilt and then reapply her pieces and quilt on top of those, which looked very nice, but that's not what should be able to happen with fusible web. Once you put it down, it should be permanent. It should be completely washable. It should not require any top stitching because the product itself is permanent. Now I'm just going to take my whole sandwich and flip it over. I'm going to spray it again from the back. And I'm going to refuse. I'm going to refuse, but I'm not going to refuse to refuse. Can't be stubborn. You got to do it. The nice thing too, when you spray the mist like that, you can actually see the mist and you can see that the fabric is dry. So that's one good thing. But also as a reminder, Steam-A-Seam has steam in the name because steam is absolutely required in the process. It is the steam that activates the fusible material. The moisture content activates that glue and allows it to start that bonding process. So a dry iron might get part of it done, but it's not going to completely activate that fusible material. So you have to use a steam spray bottle of some kind. And I don't know if you know it, you don't have to just use Steam-A-Seam 2 on fabric. Steam-A-Seam 2 could be used on glass, wood, canvas, burlap. We have our applique product on all different kinds of material, and if you can't use an iron on something, you can always use a damp tea towel and a blow dryer to fuse it in place. So I'm just going to finish this out here to make sure it's all dry. I can hear a little bit of the moisture from the Teflon pressing sheet, but I know now that we're finished. So that's as easy as it is. Peel, place, and press. That is our first block for the Zen Garden. Before you know it, we'll have a full garden in bloom, and it can join many of the other gardens we already have here in the studio. Hummingbird Garden, Radiant Garden. I love all the blooms. It keeps me cheerful and happy all year round, even in the darkest of winter. So we are one down. We've got 11 to go. And we'll look forward to seeing you again next month for another installation. Thanks for stopping by the studio today. I know this was a quick one, but until then, take care of yourself and take care of each other, and we'll see you again next time.